The Forbidden City is one of the most impressive palaces ever built. Golden roofs, vast courtyards, and perfect symmetry were designed to project power, order, and wealth. From the outside, it looks like a world of privilege and luxury. But this palace was not just a home for emperors. For centuries, thousands of people lived and worked inside these walls. Eunuchs, concubines, servants, craftsmen, guards, and attendants formed a closed society governed by strict rules, hierarchy, and constant supervision. Most of them were not powerful. Most lived tightly controlled lives. This is not a story about architecture or imperial ceremony. It is a story about the people who lived inside the Forbidden City and what life there was really like. At any one time, the Forbidden City functioned like a small city. Thousands of residents lived inside its walls, yet everything revolved around a single figure, the emperor. Very few people ever saw him, even fewer spoke to him. Access determined status, survival, and opportunity. When people imagine eunuchs in the imperial palace, they often picture powerful figures whispering in dark corridors. The reality was very different. There were thousands of eunuchs inside the Forbidden City. Only a small number came close to the emperor. Most lived quiet, controlled lives as servants. They swept courtyards, guarded gates, carried messages, managed storerooms, worked in workshops. Their days followed strict routines. Their movements were watched. Mistakes could be punished. For many poor families, palace service was still seen as a good opportunity. It meant regular food, shelter, and clothing. It offered protection from famine and forced military service. In a hard world, survival mattered. And sometimes, there was more. A eunuch posted to the right place, a gate, a storeroom, an inner office, might receive small gifts or payments. Access had value. Information had value. Bribes were never guaranteed, and they were never safe. A very small number of eunuchs rose higher. During the Ming period, some accumulated influence and wealth. They controlled who could enter. They carried messages. They passed information. Not because the system trusted them, but because the system relied on them. That reliance made them powerful, and it made them dangerous. By the Qing dynasty, the court tried to rein this in. Eunuchs were more tightly supervised. Their authority was limited. Their numbers were reduced. Yet the basic reality remained. Most eunuchs lived ordinary lives of service. A few rose quickly. Promotion depended on favor. Punishment could be sudden. For many, palace service offered a better life than the one outside the walls, but it was never an easy life, and it was never truly their own. Eunuchs lived close to power but had little status. Concubines had status but very little freedom. The imperial harem inside the Forbidden City was not a place of constant luxury or romance. It was a tightly controlled system, governed by rank, rules, and long periods of waiting. Concubines were selected from across the empire, often when they were very young. For many families, selection brought honor. For the women themselves, it brought uncertainty. Once inside the palace, every part of their lives was controlled. Where they lived, what they wore, who they spoke to, when they could be seen. Hierarchy defined everything. A small number held high rank. Many more lived in lower positions, with little chance of advancement. For most, access to the emperor was rare. Some might never see him again after their first appearance. Daily life was quiet and repetitive. Long hours indoors, fixed routines, limited movement. From the outside, this life appeared privileged. From the inside, it was often defined by isolation and waiting. By the Qing dynasty, the system became more restrained. The number of concubines declined. Ceremony replaced excess. By the early 20th century, the vast imperial harem had almost disappeared. When the last emperor lived inside the Forbidden City, there was only one empress and one concubine. The palace remained, The system did not. Most people who lived inside the Forbidden City were neither powerful nor remembered. They were servants, many of them women, who worked in the inner palace as attendants, cleaners, cooks, and messengers. Their labor kept daily life functioning. They followed fixed routines. Their movements were restricted. Few ever saw the emperor. For some, palace service meant security, food, shelter, and protection from hardship outside the walls. But it also demanded obedience. Rules were strict, and mistakes were punished. Skilled craftsmen also passed through the palace. Carpenters, painters, and repair workers were brought in. They maintained halls, gates, and roofs. They worked under supervision and usually did not live inside the Forbidden City permanently. Much of what we admire today, the great halls, carved beams, painted ceilings, exists because of their skills. History remembers the emperors and the golden buildings. It rarely remembers the hands that maintained them. For centuries, the Forbidden City functioned as a closed world. Hierarchy shaped every interaction. Beauty concealed control. Thousands of lives revolved around a single center of power. Over time, that system began to shrink. By the late Qing dynasty, palace life grew quieter. Eunuchs were more tightly controlled. Concubines fewer. Ritual remained, but authority weakened. The palace still looked the same, but the world inside it did not. By the time of Puyi, the last emperor, the system that once filled the Forbidden City had nearly vanished. One empress, one concubine. A vast palace built for a power that no longer existed. The Forbidden City was designed to protect imperial rule, but when the system that sustained it collapsed, even its walls could not preserve it. And in the 20th century, everything changed. A closed world came to an end. If you found these hidden lives inside the Forbidden City interesting, let us know in the comments. Would love to hear what surprised you most. Subscribe if you want more stories about history, and click the bell for notifications about new videos.